This story would inspire you about standing out and being unique in your creativity. Do you know this drink you're about to learn about is one of the many products owned by Coke? On watching this video, you might be a huge fan of this product or you're either just getting to know it. But either way, it started as a unique version as its kind of drink, intending to be a root beer but not necessarily. Stick with us to find out how and why.
Broaden your horizon by subscribing and becoming part of this family. Leave a like on this video as we take you through a wonderful tour on the mind-blowing events that played out at that period in time.
Barq's is an American brand of root beer created by Edward Barq and bottled since the beginning of the 20th century. The flavor of Barq's differed from other root beers on the market, giving it a bit of a bite. Over the years, the drink grew in popularity and was ultimately acquired by Coca-Cola in 1995. Edward Barq, who was a chemist at a bottling company that bottled carbonated water and was already producing a drink called Orangeon in Louisiana, New Orleans. This other business got awarded gold at the Chicago World Fair. He obviously wanted more, so he moved to Biloxi and started making his own root beer while his brother took care of the Orangeon drink. Edward Barq was met with competition as the Hires root beer, who already gained grounds and existed before him, wanted to trademark the term root beer. Allow us to walk you through this history. Before we continue, if you'd like to learn about the Hires root beer created by pharmacist Charles Elmer Hires, check out our playlist as we talked about it and its influence in America. It was one of the initial root beers that gained grounds in America. Moving on, let's delve into another historical beverage that shaped American culture. Barq moved to Biloxi, Mississippi in 1897 with his new wife. The following year he opened the Biloxi Artesian Bottling Works. By some accounts he debuted what was later to be known as Barq's root beer. Barq met a young boy on the Mississippi coast called Jesse Robinson, and employed him. Robinson was mentored by Barq and later moved to New Orleans. In 1934, Barq and Robinson signed a contractual agreement on Barq's product rights, allowing Robinson to make his own concentrate, uncommon in beverage bottling licenses. The two men remained close their entire lives, working on flavors and production challenges. A distinctive difference between the Biloxi-based root beer and the Louisiana's was that the Louisiana bottle was printed in red, versus Biloxi's blue. This was to distinguish ownership of bottles, as blue-labeled ones were returned to Mississippi and vice versa. There were also regional taste differences between the various Barq's bottlers. While there may have been minor formula differences, water was most responsible. For many decades, Barq's was not marketed as a root beer. This was in part a desire to avoid legal conflict with the Hires Root Beer Company, which was attempting to claim a trademark on the term root beer. It was also due to some differences from other root beers at the time. The formulation was sarsaparilla-based, contained less sugar, had a higher carbonation, and less of a foamy head than other brands. Now that we've got this, let's understand what root beer is. Root beer is a sweet North American soft drink traditionally made using the root bark of the sassafras tree, Sassafras albidum, or the vine of Smilax ornata, known as sarsaparilla, also used to make a soft drink called sarsaparilla, as the primary flavor. Root beer is typically, but not exclusively, non-alcoholic, caffeine-free, sweet, and carbonated. Like cola, it usually has a thick and foamy head. A common use is to add vanilla ice cream to make a root beer float. The traditional slogan was the simple affirmation, "Drink Barq's. It's good," that first appeared on the classic diamond-necked bottle, patented in 1935 by Edward Barq. In 1976, the Biloxi Barq's Company was purchased from the third generation of Barq family members by John Out and John Kerner. Now this is where it gets really interesting. You might want to focus on this part as it would teach you to always follow legal proceedings whenever business agreement and conclusions are made. Signed documents would always make everything better. Documents containing terms should be included as well. Verbal agreements aren't always the best. An aggressive television campaign was developed based on the barq's got sparks theme. Their plans to market the brand nationally were complicated by the existence of the Louisiana-based barq's companies which were owned and operated by Robinson's heirs. This complication stemmed from the fact that Edward, the initial creator, or Biloxi Barq, gave Robinson the right to produce a similar product with the same name at the start of the product's invention. If y'all can remember. This was stated at the beginning. Nevertheless, there was extended legal conflicts over the rights and ownership of the trademarks for barq's, Barq Sr. and Barq's Root Beer. The legal battle went all the way to the United States Court of Appeals, Fifth Circuit, which ruled in favor of the Robinson heirs. In 1990, Barq's partnered with the Pick and Save grocery store in DeKalb, Illinois to create the world's largest root beer float. It was mixed in an above-ground swimming pool in the parking lot and consisted of 1,500 gallons of Barq's root beer and 1,000 gallons of vanilla ice cream. If you're from Illinois, let us know what the experience was like. Haha. Did you go there to try some of it? Make a comment. Moving on, since 1995, Barq's has marketed with the slogan "Barq's is Bite." Television ads would typically feature a Barq salesman, played by Nick Swardson, going door to door to tell people. The subjects would take a sip and have an energetic reaction. Regular Barq's has 22.5 milligrams of caffeine per 12-ounce serving, similar to green tea, while Diet Barq's has no caffeine. Barq's also contains sodium benzoate as a flavor protectant, which of course are under the right conditions. The Barq's that is dispensed from Coca-Cola Freestyle machines is caffeine-free. This is because the system uses the same concentrated, microdosed ingredient for both Barq's and Diet Barq. The only difference between the two is the sweetener that is added. It is also common for Barq's that is sold in the state of Utah to be caffeine-free because many members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints avoid caffeinated beverages. Interesting, right? Please do us a favor by hitting that subscribe button and liking this video, as it would encourage us to upload more interesting videos like this. The brand has continued to expand nationally and globally, but regional roots are still behind the offbeat charm of this 120-year-old brand. The last family-held Louisiana Barq's was sold by Robinson's heirs to Coca-Cola in 2000. In 1995, the Coca-Cola Company purchased Barq's, making history with the company's first purchase of a carbonated beverage in the U.S. The brand has continued to expand nationally and globally, but regional roots are still behind the offbeat charm of this 120-year-old brand. What are some key features that Barq stands out with? Interestingly, let's note the following. It has caffeine, which makes it similar to soft drinks, but somehow it tastes like root beer. Caffeine is not necessarily a root beer feature, but similarly a soft drink feature, and Barq is one of which has it. Barq doesn't foam as much as the other root beers. Moving on, the ingredients used in Barq is one which differs from the typical ingredient in other root beers. The sarsaparilla is found in Barq, whereas sassafras is the typical ingredient used for majority of root beers. For the sarsaparilla and sassafras beverages, they are named after their distinct differences in ingredients when they were first made. Sarsaparilla was made from the sarsaparilla vine, while root beer is from the roots of the sassafras tree. These days, root beer recipes do not include sassafras, as the plant has been found to cause serious health issues. Another interesting thing is that Coca-Cola closed the dispute of the two Barq beverages from their respective owners, Jesse Robinson and Edward Barq. But the legacy of Edward Barq's drink was still prominent on the labeling, Design of the beverage. Lastly, let's consider this. When terms and agreements are made, whether written or verbal, they should always consider the future and the effects it may have on the hirer. From what we observed, what Edward intended was purely with good intentions with Robinson and was a good thing to Robinson and Edward alike, but it had disputes with their heirs years later. If you enjoyed this video and found it insightful, please leave a like and drop a comment to encourage more content from us. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Hit the subscribe button. Check out this video that talks about the legacy of Hirer's root beer. The same company that existed way before Barq's overshadowed it, and the same company that nearly trademarked the term root beer.